The morning sunlight came through in the kitchen window, just like it always had, soft and golden, catching the dust floating above the breakfast table. But everything else in my life had changed. My husband of 41 years had been buried 4 days before, and I stood at the sink washing a single coffee mug, realizing I had never truly understood what the word alone meant until that exact moment. The phone rang before my hands were even dry. It was my son. "Mom," Daniel said, and there was something in his voice I couldn't identify right away. Not grief. Not the tired gentleness of a son checking on his mother. Something different. Something careful and practiced. Like he had gone over the next part in his head before calling. "Brenda and I have been talking. We think maybe you should come stay with us for a little while, just until everything settles down." I told him I appreciated the offer. I told him I was doing all right. "It's a big house for one person," he said. I looked around the kitchen. The copper pots hanging above the stove that Robert had bought me for our 20th anniversary. The blue curtains I had sewn the summer Daniel was born. The crack in the plaster near the back door Robert had promised to fix for 11 years and never did. And somehow I had grown to love it, the way you love someone's small flaws. "It's my home," I said. There was a short pause. "Of course," Daniel replied. "Of course it is. We just worry about you." I thanked him. We hung up. Then I set the phone down on the counter and sat there quietly for a very long time. His name was Robert Allen Calloway, and he had loved me with a kind of steadiness and quiet devotion I probably did not always deserve. We were never dramatic people. We did not fight loudly or love loudly. Over 4 decades, we built something slow and solid. A home in Maplewood, New Jersey. A son. A life made up of grocery lists and ordinary Saturdays and road trips with terrible directions, and the comfort of knowing exactly how someone takes their coffee. He died on a Tuesday near the end of October. Pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed in July. Gone by fall. 3 months. The doctor said, some people got longer. We were not some people. The day we came home from his final hospital stay, when both of us already knew it would be the last one, Robert took my hand in the car and said, "I need you to promise me something. Anything," I told him, and I meant it. "Don't let them make your decisions for you." He squeezed my hand gently. "You're stronger than you realize, Margaret. You always have been. Just don't forget it once I'm not here to remind you." I promised him. I held his hand the entire drive home, and even after we parked in the driveway, neither of us wanted to let go first. The calls started before I had even finished writing. Thank you notes from the funeral. Daniel called again 4 days after our first conversation. This time, Brenda was on speaker too. Her voice was bright and efficient in the way people sound when they've already decided something and are now simply informing you about it. "We've actually been researching the housing market in your area," she said. "Mom," Daniel added, "property values have gone up a lot. Your house could probably sell for quite a bit right now." I slowly put my pen down. I had been writing to Robert's sister in Phoenix, telling her about the service, the flowers, the way the afternoon light came through the chapel windows. "I'm not selling my house," I said. "We're not saying you have to," Daniel answered quickly. He always softened Brenda's sharper edges whenever he thought I might notice them. "We just think it's something worth considering. You'd have the equity. You could move somewhere smaller, easier to manage." "And where exactly would I live, Daniel?" "With us," Brenda said immediately. "The guest room is ready. We actually just redid the floors." I thought about the guest room in Scottsdale. Beige walls, a bed covered in too many decorative pillows, a window facing a concrete wall. I imagined living inside Brenda's carefully organized life, asking permission to use the kitchen, listening to conversations about property values over dinner, making myself smaller so I could fit comfortably into their routines. "I'll think about it," I said. I had absolutely no intention of thinking about it. 2 weeks after the funeral, Daniel drove up from New Jersey without warning me first. At 10 Clay on a Wednesday morning, I heard his car pull into the driveway, and before I even opened the door, something cold settled in my chest. He had a folder tucked beneath his arm. He kissed my cheek. He smelled like coffee in airports, and Brenda's perfume, and immediately I knew she had sent him. "I wasn't expecting you," I said. "I wanted to see you." He sat down at the kitchen table and opened the folder, before I even had time to put water on for tea. "I spoke with a realtor, Mom, just to get an idea of things. The house could probably list at—" "I didn't ask you to speak with a realtor." "I know. I was just trying to help." He looked up at me with those brown eyes that had always belonged to his father too, and I felt that familiar ache that comes from loving someone deeply, while being disappointed by them at the same time. "Dad would have wanted you taken care of. Your father wanted me making my own decisions." Daniel pressed his lips together and looked back down at the folder. "The thing is, Mom, this house has 4 bedrooms. The taxes alone. I know what the taxes are. I've been paying them for 37 years. You were paying them together. It's different now." That landed exactly the way he knew it would. I turned toward the window so he wouldn't see my face. Outside, the oak tree in the backyard stood bare. Robert planted that tree the year we moved in, when it was barely taller than Daniel had been as a child. Now it towered over the yard. It would outlive all of us. "Leave the folder," I said quietly. "I'll look at it." Daniel left. I put the folder in the drawer beneath the telephone, right on top of another folder he didn't know existed. Then I stood at the kitchen window for a long while, staring at the oak tree and thinking about a small white house on the coast of Maine, and a woman named Dorothy Chen, who had been my closest friend for 34 years. Dorothy and I met at a school fundraiser back in 1991, when our sons were in the same second grade class. They sat us beside each other, selling baked goods, and within 45 minutes, we had solved each other's biggest problems and laughed harder than either of us had in months. From that day forward, we stayed inseparable in the way certain friendships are built, not on proximity or constant contact, but on something deeper that never really requires maintenance. When Dorothy's husband left her in 2009, she moved to a tiny coastal town in Maine called Pembroke. She bought a small house on a hill overlooking the harbour with her settlement money, painted the shutters dark green, and told me it was the first place she had ever lived that truly felt like hers. I visited that first summer and fell in love with the town instantly, in the way you fall in love with something you didn't even realize you had been searching for. The harbour, the scent of salt and pine, the quality of the morning light, blue and clean and full of possibility. The second summer, Robert came with me. He stood on Dorothy's porch, staring out at the water, and quietly said, "This feels like a place where a person could breathe." After that, the 3 of us started talking about the possibility of something small. A little place of our own. Somewhere to escape to. Robert had an old retirement account from his first job, untouched for more than 20 years. We made a few calls. Dorothy knew a woman whose mother was selling a little Cape-style house 3 streets above the harbour. 2 bedrooms. A kitchen full of natural light. A porch facing south toward the water. We bought it in 2018 and told almost no one. It wasn't secrecy born from deception. It was secrecy born from self-preservation. Robert and I had quietly understood something without ever needing to say it aloud. Some things inside a marriage, belong only to the two people living within it. Daniel and Brenda had opinions about finances, opinions about everything. The Maine house was the one thing that belonged entirely to us. And, after Robert died, it became the one thing that belonged entirely to me.